Yo, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Film School Experience podcast. Really good to have you guys for this week's episode. I'm really excited because, yes, I missed last week, but this week's episode is really special. We are hearing from my friend Adriel. He is an animator by trade, and he is just a wonderful filmmaker and very talented as well. He hails from Canada, so he has a very awesome experience and how he made his way from Canada all the way to USC to get his MFA. So I'm really excited for you to hear his journey. And then also for all of you who are interested in the animation world, what does that experience look like when you go to college? Now, we are lucky enough to hear from Adriel, who has got his BA and his MFA in animation. So we get to hear a little bit about what those two worlds look like and how each experience adds to one another to get to where Adriel is today. So I hope you're ready for another episode, and I will see you all on the other side. Okay, and camera is rolling.
Sound speed.
This is the Film School Experience.
Take one apple and action.
Adriel, thank you so much for taking the time to be a part of this podcast. You have an incredible story, which we're going to hear, and it's going to unfold in front of our very own ears since we're not watching it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Maddie, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to take part in this. I think that the message of this podcast is going to be really good, and a lot of people need to hear it. So it means a great deal to me that I get to be a part of it. My name is adrielmeka. I'm originally from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I am an animator by trade, an illustrator by practice, and I just recently got my master's degree in animation from USC. So as far as the education thing goes, I got an undergrad in animation from Savannah College of Art and Design, or SCAD, in 2018, and then more recently just graduated USC in a good old class of 2023.
That's amazing. I love how you said little class, which we'll expand on that.
Oh, yes.
As we get through the questions. But for you, Adriel, growing up in Montreal, was animation school always the goal for you?
I think it's interesting as far as that goes, because even growing up, like I was born in Montreal, and then I bounced around a lot. So born in Montreal, when I was 4 years old, I was in the States. I was like in Arizona, Hawaii, Georgia. I was in Europe for a bit because my mom lives out there. And to answer the question directly, as far as animation school, I had always been a tinkerer and had always like drawn stuff, created stuff, like, you know, found good ways to just like build stuff. Like my mom's famous and favorite story is I was a big fan of Spider-Man, and I would grab dental floss and just like make little webs and throw them in the house. It would drive her crazy, but she would have some charm to it. So yeah, I was just always making stuff, and it was just about like finding an outlet to where I can really, you know, channel my creativity. So I grew up watching a ton of cartoons, and it just made sense. My family is also they're very big film people, so we constantly watch movies, and just movies, cartoons, art, all just met at animation. And channeling it into education, it really came where I was getting ready to apply. I was looking at the time at industrial design, actually, so I made a massive pivot because I was like, let me try to find a way to channel design into something of what I thought, because I didn't know too much about the artistic career of animation and illustrator. So I was like, let me try to find something that on paper seemed a little bit more lucrative. So I was like, okay, I can still draw with industrial design, and I applied to a ton of different schools that had industrial design, just as, you know, kind of like a STEM program kind of a thing. I applied to Georgia Tech and because they had an industrial design program, and SCAD had an industrial design program, and I'd walked in on a SCAD visit, and they were like, hey, do you want to come to our school? Like, just sign up right here, right now. And it was the most like, most whirlwind thing. I was just like, oh yeah, they have industrial design. I applied. I got waitlisted for tech, and then SCAD accepted me. And I think about that often because it's like that could have completely pivoted my entire experience. So SCAD got me in. I went in and I was 100% like, I'm going to be industrial design. I want to do this. And I always had animation, that love, like I said, underneath my belt. So it was really just one day we had people from Disney Alumni come in from SCAD, and they were like, we're working on a small movie, Big Hero 6. You know, this is like our behind the scenes here, the character design. And they really like pulled the curtain from behind, like, you know, just showed everything about what went into animation. And I was like, who am I kidding? I have to swap this. So I can't say it's always been on the horizon, animation school, but it kind of worked itself out in mysterious ways. Long-winded.
That was great, honestly. Like I'm picturing you in your younger version with some dental floss running around.
Wow.
Yeah, that is the cutest thing on earth. But that is so cool, and that's kind of been a theme with a lot of the people that we've heard from on the podcast, is that like film school, animation school, video game school was not like it was something that people wanted to do, but didn't really know how to get into it because it's not always advertised necessarily, especially if you're not from the hubs of like entertainment. So it's very cool that it was something that was always like in your heart, and then it revealed itself when you somehow, some way would have possibly been doing something completely different, you know, and had a very different trajectory. So that's amazing. So it leads me to the next question is like, what was the application process for SCAD, if there was one? I know that it was kind of a pivot, and then also what was the application process like for USC?
Absolutely. So SCAD, like I mentioned, it was actually very, very simple. My aunt was studying her MFA at SCAD, and we had gone to the SCAD Atlanta campus, and there was a showcase and everything like that. So she was going to showcase her degree at the time. And literally there was just a room full of computers and some representatives. And they were just like, hey, do you want to, they were just like, hey, do you want to do art as a living? Come into this room and do an application. So it was very on the whim. I was a junior in high school, so it was like about the time anyway. And I was like, yeah, I'll check it out. My aunt goes here. I know a little bit about the school. Let me do it. So I literally filled out my application for SCAD just on site in person at Savannah at SCAD Atlanta, typed it out, filled out my information, and of course there was follow up. You know, they were like, send me your what's it called, your notes and everything, like your report card or whatever. yeah, send us your transcript. That's the word I'm looking for. Send us everything, all the referral letters from your teachers and stuff like that, and that kind of just manifested itself. I think one of the things about SCAD is the acceptance rate was pretty high. So a lot of people I know that applied to SCAD got in, and that was fairly seamless. You know, I applied, got a call. They were just like, hey, just like to congratulate you on getting in. And then they offered some scholarships and stuff. And then USC, that was a period where after graduating from SCAD, I had tried to navigate the world for like 2 years and just see how it went. And someone told me, actually, my professor at SCAD told me, what you should do is graduate from your undergrad, try to navigate, get a little bit of experience under your belt, and then definitely like get a master's degree, because it's just going to elevate you and it's going to open a lot more doors for you. So I always took that golden nugget of advice in the back of my mind, and I had reached the 2-year mark, and I was like, I gotta do it. So I had applied to, ironically, USC was kind of a backup school. It was very interesting. It was very interesting because I had applied to Paris College of Art to study animation, and I was going to be out in Paris, and it fell through. And I wanted like, I got accepted, but they had delayed it by a year. So I had a year of just like, come next fall, you're going to be accepted automatically. But because I wanted to have a little bit more options, I was like, let me look up animation. I love animation. I want to do a master's degree in animation. And where do I want to live? I was like, I love Paris. California would be pretty sweet to live, right? So what is this, USC? I looked up like top animation schools in the US, etc. And it was like California. There was RISD, of course, and all the other places and stuff. And I was like, okay, I can get down with USC, whatever, whatever that is. And I applied. There was a process where we had to submit a portfolio. So those 2 years really helped because I had built up my portfolio. I remember my dad and I would just sit in the living room and literally like beam my portfolio, because it was a video portfolio of all your work. We would beam it onto the TV, and he would like kind of like a director give me critique and be like, hey, move this around, do this doesn't read too well. And then we had an extensive process, as you know, kind of similar to film, where we had to do like essays and writing, like a background check just to get into USC. And we went through the process. Like I mentioned slightly earlier that it was a small class. Apparently there were numerous people applying, and I was fortunate enough to be one of the 15 people that got accepted for animation master's program of 2023. It was wild, but it took my life on a different journey. I'm very happy I took the choice. Yeah.
That is amazing. And I love how like you're even downplaying it. Like a few people applied. Like there's probably like hundreds, if not maybe thousands of people that apply, and there's only 15 that are accepted into this program. So, I mean, that's huge. And even me being in the film side of USC, like going into the film school, I knew that the animation department was really small. So like I can only speak for myself. But like when I looked over like to my right and I saw all of you guys, all the animation students, and I knew there was only 15, I was like, you guys are all stars. Like if it was hard enough for 60 of us to get accepted into the film school, like 15 is crazy. So all of you are just incredibly talented, and I'm super happy that our paths crossed, because obviously we wouldn't be talking right now.
Likewise. And I mean, one of the things that's very unique about our situation is we tell everyone we're the COVID babies.
Yes,
So
we really are.
Ours is also a very different process because, yeah, we started school pretty much in 2020, 2021, where the pandemic had just started, and we were in a precarious situation where it was like, okay, I want to pursue this. It seems like an opportune time because the world's shutting down. Do we shut down with it, or do we kind of like find a way to finagle and like, bob and weave? And so our first year was on Zoom. We navigated that, and it was really awesome that the last 2 years were in person, and we got to really kind of take advantage of everything that USC had to offer.
Yeah, no, exactly. And, did it ever cross your mind? Because it crossed my mind, and I'm sure everyone else too. But did you ever think like, oh, I think I want to like take a year off and then come back in person? Because I know a few people that did do that when they got in during 2020. Like, was that something that...
Honestly, it was like I had no job. The world was shut down. It was like, I was like, man, everyone else is not doing anything. I might as well start my degree, And the biggest appeal, I think, to me, for one, it was like it just made sense. But one of the biggest appeals was normal master's programs for animation, at least, were only 2 years. So the fact that this one was a 3-year program, I was like, we don't know how long everything's going to be shut down. But even if like 1 year is shut down and then 2 it's open, I'm still getting the in-person experience that a normal master's program would get. So it seemed like a simple choice. It was a nice little toss-up, but at first, because it was remote and on Zoom, I took it from Montreal, and then there was a nice coast-to-coast change when I got to actually move out here to California.
Yo, that's so awesome. So, okay, you apply, you get into the animation school. What were you expecting to learn from this program? Obviously, it's a prestigious program, but like, what were your expectations once you got in?
Honestly, the main expectation that I have, and this is one of the things I look back on fondly because I do believe that it was achieved, I really wanted it to open doors. I really wanted it to give me a level, an advantage, because that was one of the things the golden nugget I mentioned that the teacher said at SCAD. I had navigated, I graduated from SCAD. I felt like I had all the tools and skills, and I was just like, I'm chipper, I'm young, I can, and the animation gate was just shut. I was like, man, how do I breach in? Here's my little doodles, etc. And it felt, I did all my applications. Everyone in animation has at least 6 rejection letters from Disney and just sitting in their inbox. So I was like, man, it's not as easy. It's really like the cool kids table. You got to really find your way. So I was like, I did that. I did Apple retail for a while. And in the background, I was just working odd jobs and I did children's books and stuff like that. And in the background, I was just like, okay, how do I breach this industry? How do I really get it? And I was like, I want to go to grad school because I want to be back in a space where I'm surrounded by other people that are in a similar mindset, and B, I want to go to something that's going to give me the skills to where at worst case scenario, I can at least go back and I can do something like teaching, or I can if I'm not breaching the industry, I can at least impart knowledge to other people. And it's a little bit more security. It is going to be an investment, but I was like, I need to be back in that space. It was really funny, working at Apple for a little bit, and I'm talking to people that have been there for 30 years and not knocking that, but it's like, they're like, I love this. I could always do this. And I was that one kid that's like, I'm going to come in and out. I'm going to be a director one day. I'm going to work on movies one day. And, they give me that look where they're like, okay. But, I just perpetuated it so much. I really believe you create your reality with the words that you put out there. And I just perpetuated it so much. I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. It really, USC and going to grad school, I really wanted it to open that door and give me that chance. And I feel like it did. Yeah.
No, that's so cool. And there's so much value in a master's degree. And I love how even in your mindset, you were like, oh, if I don't break into the industry or whatever, you can still implore knowledge to people. And that was one of my biggest reasons why I went to USC and even got my master's, was because if I knew that once I was in the industry, or if I never got in the industry, I could at least teach everything I love to someone else and instill that passion into, the youth who are coming up below us, however you want to say. So that's so awesome that was something of your your nucleus of who you are. And it's amazing. Yeah, for sure. So, okay, you're at USC. You got in, started school, started to figure out your rhythm of the school life. What was your work life like, if you worked at all? And then how did you balance your work life and your living situation? Did you live on campus? Were you off campus? And then how do you manage work your outside life and then school? What was that like fusion of things?
I think I definitely did. I was a full-time student, I think, in the sense that I think it was awesome. The pandemic helped because everything was shut down. So I got the liberty of being a full-time student, and particularly experiencing the pandemic in Montreal. Everything was shut down in the sense of like we had curfew, like we couldn't do things, like there were the cities were empty as we all experienced it, but at least Montreal, the government gave us a little bit of a pension, so we got to like live daily life, and it really was just as simple as showing up and putting in the effort when it came to my classes. So the whole first year, my living situation, I had an apartment with my sister. We were just in Montreal. We were just paying the bill, doing our thing on a day-to-day basis, and then at night, or like whenever I had my Zoom classes, I would hop online, talk to my teachers, take my classes. Because it was in California, I was 3 hours ahead, so that was crazy when it got to the night classes. But yeah, as far as the work-life balance goes, it was really just that, and I felt like I was just a student again, and I was given the chance to do that. We had different setups and stuff, like we had to go buy our own equipment to animate and stuff like that, so we got like kind of an Amazon list of things to build up our own setup. But otherwise, when it actually came to being on ground for USC, I had lived with some roommates prior to. There's the whole aspect of, oh no, new city, new country, let's see how we're gonna do this. I lived with roommates for a bit, and the last year I just lived by myself. And I think it was always full-time student, and I always juggled it with freelance projects. Like anytime I had the bandwidth to do freelance projects on the side or outside of classes, I did. And I was fortunate enough to, through USC, and we'll talk about it a little later, but I actually got internships every single summer at my time there. So yeah, it helped out.
That's amazing. And I think that's maximizing the experience as a animation student, as a student in general, is just taking those opportunities and finding your bandwidth. And I love that you said that, because understanding what your bandwidth is, and then knowing like, hey, I have space here during the weekends where I can actually go out and pursue work and find work and work that is specifically in your craft. And maybe it's not, that's okay. But at least you understand your bandwidth, and that, I think that's huge. And a lot of people struggle with that. I know I'm one of them. Because I always feel like I'm busy, and then sometimes I'm sitting in my room, I'm like, wait, I could be doing something. The wheels are just spinning.
Relatable.
So that's really, really cool, and you have a very healthy balance, it sounds like. So from the classes that you took at USC, how have those influenced you as an animator? Is there any one class in particular that stands out that you still carry with you as you're now kind of in the working force world?
Well, let's see. I'll answer that in two parts. I think the first one is very important. So as far as just like, how has it influenced me? One of the things that I really appreciated about the master's program, especially compared to the undergrad, I don't forsake SCAD. I really love everything that they taught me, and I love the way that they taught it to us. It was the way I almost explain it to people is they gave us a lot of tools. They showed us the entire pipeline. They're like, you want to do this? Here's this. You want to do rigging? You can almost pick like a lot of different focuses. And I felt like I graduated with a lot of tools, and almost like, okay, what do I build? I could use this tool. I can use the hammer really well. I can use this really well, but what do I build? And USC was structured in a way where they gave you not necessarily a blueprint, but like a very rudimentary like model to follow, so where you can apply your skills. So coming in, it was a group of like 15 students, as I mentioned. One of the things about it being so small, especially compared to like the film program that we talked about, is that I admire how film is very very collaborative. Animation, because it was 15, all of us came in, we kind of like had our own lane. I'm the viz dev guy, I'm the 3D guy. We all have our own style, our own way of doing it. So we were really good at providing insightful critique, but we pretty much just came in and did our own thing. And then the way the program was structured was we had 3 years. The first year, we all got up to speed, and we all took an animation class. Like, everyone knows 2D animation. Everyone knows those tools. Everyone knows how to use the hammer. Everyone knows how to use whatever. Awesome. Now that everyone's up to speed, our second semester of the first year, we're going to do something called P1, or Production 1, which is where we have one semester to make a short. And obviously everyone's like, oh my God, I'm going to make the next Pixar short. This is my time to shine. Oh my God. And then you get your expectations smacked because you're like, not only can I not make a Pixar short, but I can't do it in 3 months. But I like that because it gave us the chance to try. Then we had P2 the following year. So the exact same structure, 1 year, 1 semester, I should say, where we can make a film in that time span. We can either expand on the first project we had, or we could completely scrap our idea. But at least we have that structure where from start to finish, storyboarding, writing, animating, art direction, etc. From start to finish, we just completely make our own thing. And then the final year, as you know, is our thesis year. So I love the structure. I love the fact that it gave me the chance to actually make projects, make films, and that learning process was amazing as well. And then as far as my favorite class, I love those. My first film was a 2D film because I was just like, I know how to draw, let me do this. My second film was a 3D film because I was like, I learned the pipeline that way, let me see how I can fare with a 3D film. And then my last film was my thesis, a 2D short. And then to answer in less words, my favorite class that I took, I love illustration and art direction and like really deciding what a visual fingerprint of a film is. And I took a class called production design with Josh Staub, who's a former, I think he's actually a current production designer at Disney. And it was like how you take the idea of like, hey, let's take Miles Morales, let's reboot the whole Spider-Man franchise. What if we gave it a comic book look? What if we made it in 3D? What if we made chromatic aberration? Like you make all these little kind of like rules for art direction, and you do it visually. But yeah,
That's crazy. Wow, that's so cool, and I love that you touched on like comparing the collaborative nature that the film department has, and then how it's different from the animation department. And that's something that I learned as we were in the program together. You know, I'd be like working on my projects, and I'd have a lot of the collaborators that I wanted to work with. I sought them out, and then we made wonderful films together. And then I remember learning about the animation department. It's different. Like you guys do everything, and I don't know exactly how much is handed off to someone else, if that was a thing or if that was possible. But how did you find collaborators within the 14 other students in your department, if they even had the bandwidth?
it was rarely the 14 other students. You did have opportunities. Like we have some MFA 2s now that are actually like doing a joint project together. They work really well together. They've done a film together in the past. So like you can have the opportunity to collaborate. But when it comes to everyone's own original idea, they kind of train you. They train us all as filmmakers. So when it comes to finding specifics, we kind of go backwards and we hire people from like the underclassmen. Like we'll hire them as like animators, and they get the opportunity to work on our projects. So something like that. So when it came to my project, like with my thesis, I came up with the entire idea, and then I would have like a pitch where we pitched the entire idea to the entire class, and then someone would come on board and they would say, "Oh, I'm really good at backgrounds," and then you scope them out, you kind of hire them, and they would work on your project. So yeah, and you kind of built a little crew like that. Yeah.
Well, that's crazy. Damn, it's very similar, obviously, to the film school experience in terms of just collaborating, and obviously the art form in itself is a collaboration, I think. So it's really cool that you found those collaborators and that there is room for that within the animation department. I just was always in awe at the work that you guys do, because it's incredible and it's so much. Like when I found out that you guys literally do everything start to finish, I was just like, wow, I don't know how they do it, but you guys are, the 15 best in the world. So, so it makes sense totally. So out of the professors that you had at USC, and I guess we can even talk about SCAD as well. How credible were your professors? Now I know a lot of them were either like retired and have done many, many years, or some are even active and still working. Like how credible were they in your education, and are you taking whatever they taught you? Like, is there a 1-to-1 ratio between what they taught you and what the industry actually is?
Oh my gosh. I think that's one of the things that I honestly commend both SCAD and USC for, is the professors were nothing short of inspiring. It was like at SCAD, my first experience with animation, my first time sitting down being like, I'm in an animation class, the professor is just like, awesome guys, so happy you're here. I'm going to be teaching you about the basics of animation. For starters, let me show you a little bit of my work. And then he hits play on a video and it's just like a scene from Lilo and Stitch. And you're like, what? You're like, what? So they're absolutely credible. I think they absolutely, they work at Disney for years, and they come back and they impart the knowledge to tell you how the industry works. They have the skill and the talent, and they bring in guest speakers that are just extremely like respected in the industry and very talented as well. And then that was at SCAD. Like my professor John Weber, he was the Disney guy who worked on Lilo and Stitch, and he showed us all the work. They were very good about also being the ones who actually signed my my recommendation letter to get into USC. So not only are they well respected, talented, and very credible, but they want to see you succeed. They want to champion you. And I never felt otherwise. I always felt like I was loved and pushed in my industry, and really like they fostered, I should say, the growth. And then you have like USC, same thing. You know, we're in the class P1 where we have to make our own film, and the professor is just sitting in front of us. He's like, yeah, I made this small project. You know, I'm known for, you know, that 80s song Take On Me by Aha. And I'm like, oh, yeah. He's like, yeah, I directed that video. I did all the animation and directed it. And we're just like, yo, how much, like, you're making residuals on that? like he's like, yeah, I just like to come back and teach and stuff. Peter Chung, he's the director of like Aeon Flux, and he worked on Rugrats. He taught a storyboarding class and storytelling class. Like, you're constantly just starstruck. And not only are you starstruck, but it's like these people come and they show up, and oftentimes they'll even like go back and do their other jobs, but like they're passionate about it and they foster it, honestly. And then more recently, like Miguel Giron, he's the head of story on Spider-Verse, and he's teaching a storyboarding class at USC just for funsies. You know, so it's like, yes, invest in me, I'll invest in you happily. And then, yeah, the latter part of your question. Oh, advice. You said any advice. Honestly, the Take On Me professor, his name is Michael Patterson, and his wife Candace as well. I consider them my USC parents, and they've always been very, very good about pushing me to do everything I can, giving me all the advice I can, regardless. I should say advice that they could, regardless of what medium I wanted to go into. And what was funny was Mike always made jokes where he was like, I know you're working, but you really need to act like there's a flamethrower behind you. Like, you need to act like it's on fire. Like, you need to just put 100% of your effort into it. And then I graduated, and he congratulated me, and he looked me in the eye, and he said, everything that you're doing is amazing. And he's like, I just want you to know, a lot of people graduate, they reach the peak, and then they're like, oh, okay, and they settle. And he's like, I want you to know, regardless of the fact that you graduated, you have to just keep going. Just keep topping what you're doing, keep moving up, keep escalating. And I honestly, like, I'll sit in bed and I'll like actually think about that. It's very simple information, but it's like, you know, I graduated. Okay, let me apply. I got into Disney TVA. Thank God. Let me keep going. Let me try to see if I can do podcasts. Let me try to see if I can, you know, just keep going. Let me just keep going. Like, I hear Mike's word, all right, man, just keep going in his voice as well. And it's very simple, but just never stop. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we're very fortunate to have gone to a school that really champions you, like you said. And it's so cool to see that, you know, even after graduating, those words are still, you know, in the back of your head when you're laying down. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So, you know, USC is a very unique place. I don't know how many other schools are designed like this. And what I mean by that is there's the film school, the animation school, there's the games division. Like, all of us are kind of branched into SCA, which is School of Cinematic Arts. And I think I maybe know the answer to this, but maybe you can kind of expel a little bit more. Like, how did you try to marry the three of us? Like, how was it for you going out and finding other people outside of animation? And did you find use in those relationships that you might have made?
I mean, this is an example.
It's a living example.
This is an example. But yeah, I mean, honestly, we have so many different mixers and events at USC that try to get people together. I think part of it is like it's available for you to take advantage of, but at the same time, you yourself have to take advantage of it. So I loved film. I got into this because I love film. I loved always talking to you about what you were doing. You know, I like that we were the class of 2023. So we all got to, like, you know, we had that camaraderie, and I loved meeting people that were doing writing and kind of seeing the entire facets of what goes into film as a medium. So I always love stuff like that. And yeah, like, people are doing different things, but there's never any closed doors. Even something like our buildings were connected at the basement. I could just walk over and see what you're up to and then come back over and do my thing. And you constantly, like, I know, like, you and then like Ramon as well, like, people that are always in film, and they're always also very curious about animation and curious about talking and like kind of like bridging that gap of like, what's going on over here? How does your medium work? How does it? Yeah, I like that. People are inquisitive, and yeah, you need to take advantage of the space.
And, you know, I'm just remembering right now at this very moment that you and I have collabed together in a sense. Jimene's thesis film.
Oh, yeah.
You did the artwork,
yeah.
You know, and I filmed it. And I was actually recently talking to Jimena earlier today. We were talking about the short film, and we passed that clip of your artwork, and I was just like, oh my God, Adriel worked on it. We finally collaborated.
Finally.
You know, in like the smallest, minute way. But again, those are just things that I don't know can be replicated at other film schools, animation schools, because I don't know if they like branch everyone together. And so I think there's just so much synergy that is there at USC, and I kind of feel like USC can do a better job at connecting it. Granted, I understand that we have the mixers, but I think there should be more of a push in like a way that we really can communicate with one another and collaborate, because you guys are so incredible. The games department is, and there's just like nothing but all stars and talented people. So I feel super lucky to have been just in the room, you know.
Likewise. Yeah, I think it's just like a lot of that stuff was like student led and like, you know, student government organizations and stuff like that. So I think if USC did something that really, like you said, pushed it a little bit more, like almost made it mandatory, all of you guys sit at this table, mix and mingle, that would be pretty fun as well. But, you know, like you said, we are just among the best of the best. And it's like, you got to feel a little bit excited to take a part of it. You know, like you got to feel just so honored to be, in the presence, as you said, of all these talented people.
For sure. That's so cool. And you graduated 2023, just like me. We were there on the same day. It was amazing. And now that we're like, what, 4 or 5 months out of graduation? God. Like what? I know. Crazy, huh? What's it been like for you? Like, what's that transition process? Because I'm still figuring out, and much like you are, but like, what has it been for you? I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, but some people may have the perception with an art degree, you know, doors just come flying open because, you know, we are talented, yes, but does it work that way?
Well, you know, in Mike's words, you got to keep going. So it's like, you know, dang, like after graduation, we did talk about it. Like, luckily I was fortunate enough to, during the last semester, we had something called Studio Day, which is kind of like a career fair where a lot of studios will come in and, you know, present their work to you, and you get to present your work to them. And they kind of do like 15-minute interviews, and it could potentially lead to stuff. In the past, that's what led to my internships at Nickelodeon. And this last year, where everything, you know, everything's riding on your graduation, I was fortunate enough to talk to Disney Television Animation, and I spoke with an amazing recruiter named Kyle, and I showed him my work, and he was like, you need to apply to this internship. And push came to shove, and one thing led to another, and, you know, through a lot of hard work and effort, like I managed to land the internship. So luckily my summer break, even though it was like my last summer, oh my God, my summer break after graduation was just 3 weeks, because as soon as we graduated like end of May, as soon as June 5th came around, I was pretty much in the studio and got to work on a TV show called Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. So in that regard, I consider myself very fortunate, because I know that right after we graduated, like we started school in a pandemic and we ended school in a writing strike. So it's like just our luck. But yeah. So the storm, you know, has its conditions, but fortunately I've been able to navigate it in a certain way. And I also like, you know, helping other people and bringing people up. So if I can connect them with anyone I know in the industry, I get the chance to as well. But yeah, that's been a little bit of my experience. Now the internship wrapped up, and I'm on an extension of the internship now. So it'll still be a little bit of that, you know, doors can open for you, doors can do it, but I think it boils down to the relationships that you have and the relationships you try to maintain. And you do have to, just like what Mike said, like you have to be proactive. You really do have to go and chase it, because it's not as simple as just, here's my degree, let me in. My degree is my key. You really do have to keep working, keep grinding. Yeah.
That's so refreshing to hear, even for myself. Because sometimes, you know, like I'll sit in my room and I'll be like, man, I graduated from USC. Like, that's crazy. And then, wait, that can't be it. That doesn't mean all the doors are open. Like, how come no one's calling me? You know, I'm looking at my phone and it's not ringing. But you
for
really,
Bob Iger to text me.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, but you just got to keep going, and you know, it just goes to show that even those of us that did graduate, we still have to continue to push that envelope and try to really maximize our opportunities. That paper doesn't guarantee anything.
Mm-hmm. But as we discussed prior to, there is something about USC specifically, that it is a community. Like you've described how you've gotten some jobs through people that you met at USC. It is really a community, and they do respect the title. So, you know, I've gone to places and it's just like, fight on. They'll do the peace sign. They'll be like, you went to SC? Oh my God, man. Like, you have to leverage your network. You have to make sure that, like you said, you build those relationships, you maintain those relationships, even if it's just something as simple as checking up on people and making sure that you're on their mind and they're on your mind and stuff. You never know where it's going to yield. And they recognize the difficulty that it was to get into USC, B, the hard work that you put in, and it is like a cool kid stable where they'll be like, I remember you, come on, yeah, get over here.
That's so funny. Like on my way here, I was driving and I was thinking about that notion of like, if I met someone on set or whatever, just in life, and I knew that they went to a film school, didn't even have to be USC, I would respect the fact that they took the time and they spent the money to go and get that education, because that just says a lot.
Yeah.
And specifically for us, the whole Trojan mafia is what they call it. It's real, and it's really awesome, and it is really cool and fun to see people out in the wild, and then they're like, their eyes light up. Oh, you went to USC as well, So there's so much benefits to going to an institution to get an education. Although I don't think that's the one answer. It shouldn't be, for sure. So another thought that I had was with film, and it could be unique to film because I don't understand how the animation studios and departments work, but I think it's well known and documented that you don't have to go to film school to be a filmmaker. Is it the similar thought process for animators? Like when you were doing your internship at Nickelodeon and now you're at Disney, you probably don't have the time to, but the people in those rooms, do you think all of them went to some sort of institution, or were they doing it for so long and they're still there? Like, what is that?
I do think that some form of basic training is beneficial, learning the basics, but then you have stuff like, I think it was Tarantino and Christopher Nolan that said, like, the best way to learn how to make films is just to get behind the camera, just like start shooting stuff, and then you learn based off of your mistakes, you learn through doing. And I think that USC in general just provides a good mixture of being an academic and actually having the creative projects to where you can discipline yourself to do it. Because you can totally not go to film school. You can totally be the person that just sits there and like sketches and does their thing, or like sits there and like has their camera and shoots everything, and then they start getting opportunities and stuff because you're just so passionate about it. But film school in general is like, when you don't know how to manage the time, or you don't know how to where to put your energy on a project, film school gives you the blueprint to really do the thing. And I think at the end of the day, the people want you to have the best work. The people are coming from the industry, so it gives you the resources that you wouldn't have if you were just shooting yourself, or shooting stuff yourself. I would say shooting stuff yourself, or just drawing by yourself, etc. But at the same time, you meet so many talented people where it's just like, yeah. And nowadays with YouTube as well, they're just like, yeah, I just threw on how to do concept art on YouTube, or I just saw a video on TikTok, or LinkedIn or Coursera. So many resources are available to you, to where I would not want anyone to feel like it's the end all be all that they have to go to film school. But there are some, it's pros and cons to both, and I think that you can leverage both, absolutely. And then I guess more specifically to answer the question, people that I've met the whole, I would say, spectrum of people. I met people where they have been that person with the sketchbook, and then their drawings are just like, oh my God, you have to bow. You're just like, I wish my drawings came anything close to you. And then you have people where it's like, oh, I actually studied thermal dynamics, or physics or something like that. And then one day I just got into 3D animation. I was like, the 3D software is very similar to 3D. So I just and then they're doing amazing 3D. So you're like, what? You have people that have pivoted. You have people that have done the academic route, and people that have done the organic route. I think there are, more than one way to get to the end result. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Fascinating. That's cool to know, because I always wondered what that looked like in the world of animation, because like I said, on a film set, you could be working with someone that has never been in film school, yet they know what they're doing. They've been doing it for so long. So it's cool to hear that there are other paths to get to that one destination. Okay.
Yeah, we toss around a phrase a lot in animation that's just called pencil mileage. At the end of the day, it really is just pencil mileage, in that you can get that by sitting there and drawing by yourself, or you can get that by going to school and having that disciplined creative space to do so. But it's just about the hours that you put in, I would say. Yeah.
Dang, that's awesome. Cool. So something I did wanted to hear a little bit more about the process of Kona, your thesis, and I know that it's doing good things. It's getting into film festivals. Tell us what the process was like creating that incredible story and artwork that you have, and then what's it been like now that it's actually being seen in the world, and how?
Oh my God!
Yeah, what's that like for you?
Man, that process is going to be very similar to me with industrial design. It's like, in the sense of Kona was a pivot. It was a massive pivot, you know. I explained the structure of the school. We reached our last year where we have to actually make a thesis film, and we take the entire 2 semesters to do it. Our semester prior to our last year is pre-thesis, where we basically come up with a lot of ideas and just, you know, throw out stuff at a wall, see what sticks, and then see what we can actually, you know, like a fruit that we can actually we can make into something. So at that time, I had done a 2D short for P1. I had done a 3D short for P2, and I was like, I want to do something 3D. I want to do something that looks cool. I want to take my concept art and make it look amazing. And I had like played around with an idea I had for like a feature that was like about a king that gets turned into a kid, and then like he has to rediscover who he is and everything like that. And it was a very robust and convoluted like story. And then I had a sandbox dilemma, in the sense of, I'll explain, like I had this entire world mapped out, but I didn't know how to build something out of it in the time span of like a short film and in the time span of our last year. So I was like, yeah, the film is like 2 hours something long, but how do I show it to people in this little excerpt? So I was like, okay, do I show them just visuals? Do I try to like redact the entire story? Do I just like et cetera, et cetera? And I was going through so many things where it was just hard to communicate the story. I had beautiful images to show people, but it had no base, like it had no core, no soul in the short form. So I spent all my pre-thesis basically just like going through that. And then ironically, we wrapped up pre-thesis. I told all my faculty members after we had our review that I was like, okay, either I really spend my summer completely finding a way to retrofit a story into this short form, or I come up with something completely from scratch. And that was the summer that Stranger Things season 4 came out. And as you know, there are 4 things that come out of my mouth. It's Stranger Things, Arcane, Spider-Verse, and SpongeBob. So I was watching Stranger Things, and I just loved like the 80s references. I love the 80s cinema. I'm a big fan of just 80s movies in general. And I was like, wait a second, why don't I try to do something that's really just a testament to me? I was like, you know, when I was in those first Zoom years, like I had a gigantic Stranger Things poster behind me constantly on Zoom. I was like, I'm always talking about this. I'm always perpetuating this. Why don't I do something that's 2D? Because I always loved 2D and I'm an illustrator by trade. So I was like, why don't I just do some soul searching and really do something that's a calling card for me? And I was like, what if I did a movie that's Stranger Things vibes, 80s vibes, but it's about a kid that goes to a summer camp and meets a monster. So it's like my log line, like my umbrella synopsis is basically How to Train Your Dragon, Stranger Things meet at a summer camp. And I was like, okay, I can get behind this. I can wake up every day and be excited to do this movie. I can be happy about it. And once it's done, people are going to be like, that's an Adriel movie. So the summer came, I brainstormed some ideas. Then finally I had to hit the ground running when it came to actual production years, because I was starting a little bit behind. But I completely made the story. I used all my resources. I talked to people constantly and got a lot of feedback just to really tighten up the story. And as far as making it goes, like I feigned the idea of, maybe feign's not the proper word to use for it, but now that I was given the opportunity to make my film, I'd never done that before. And I wanted to kind of like fake it till you make it and follow a lot of productions that I liked. So I liked it when productions weren't just like one person, it was like a team. So I was like, let me try to get as many people as I can to work on this. I liked it when they post progress pictures. I liked it when they, you know, So I did stuff like that. Built my team the first semester, made the movie the second semester, and as far as life afterwards, it has fortunately gotten into some festivals. It's been super fun to see it kind of grow and circulate. I've gotten to meet a lot of people through the festivals. A lot of things like this are are first for me, but you know, I've loved the process and the people that I met along the way.
That's so cool, and it's such a wonderful film. I really enjoyed it for sure, and like I'm wondering how much of Kona is like your identity, is your story, your footprint. Is there anything we can kind of glean from that film that we see in you?
Yeah, I mean, Jasper, the main character, is pretty much just me with hair. So, growing up, you know, Jasper is like, he's drawing in his sketchbook constantly. He has like wears his emotions on his sleeve, etc. Very expressive and stuff. So the character in the movie goes to this camp. One thing that's funny is like his parents in the movie just kind of like drop him off and like they go to Fiji. So I have to remind everyone that no, my parents were very loving and they never just like threw me at a camp. But the character's identity is very me, very inquisitive. I loved, I'm from Canada, from Montreal, and I've lived in a lot of different places. So I liked that I got to put a little bit of a Canadian touch on this. Like, it takes place at a summer camp. 80s movies, I love them all the time. Like, so many of 80s movies, like Back to the Future, I have so many Back to the Future assets and merch. So I love that I got to give it that edge. I partnered with an amazing composer who literally, like, after I did my pitch, I told him, like, this is my retro idea. And he's like, hi, I'm actually in an 80s cover band. And he's like, I don't know what your film was about. I love the visuals so far. And he's like, I'm going to give your film 110% if I work on it. And he was very, very passionate about it. And I worked with him, and we created, like, some amazing 80s stuff. It's really just so much of me is in it, just from a stylistic perspective, from drawing. A lot of my drawing techniques are in it, the people that I've worked with and stuff like that. And I love it. It serves as a calling card. Yeah.
It's amazing again.
Thank you.
Congratulations to all the film festivals that it's in, and it will continue to get into more. Have you gone to any of the? I think I saw some photos. Right. What was that like talking to people and?
Oh my God, it was so fun. It was it was interesting though, because a lot of it was my first. I think my main memory of it was amazing that I got to be there and actually be on a red carpet, like seeing that in first person. I was like, wow, this is what I've been seeing from like the little TV screens. Like, I'm actually here. It's awesome just to see the many ways that people have gotten there. I think that's what's been the most refreshing. Like, I'm just here for my student film, and I feel like it's like my little macaroni painting. Like, here's my little, here's my little thing. And then you talk to someone else and they're like, I've had a 15-year-long career at Disney and everything. I started this film like 1 year, I started this film 14 years ago, and I put it down on the back burner, and then finally, like, I got back to it during the pandemic, and I really put all the love into it. And like, my buddy Andrew Chemsworth, he pretty much did that with his film, The Brave Locomotive, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna like probably win an Oscar. So it's crazy just to hear the different paths that people took. Some people were not even ever in animation, and they were just like, I love animation, so I wanted to make this movie, and they got into the festival. And it also opened a different side of me. That's where I kind of like sat down, and I was like, wow, Adriel, like, it was just getting my little badge for LA Shorts, and it's like, Adrielmeka, director. And I was like, whoa. It felt like such an affirmation. I was just like, I'm not like I made it, but it was like I made it, and I got to keep it going, as Mike says. Some other things as well. I had a funny moment where I was getting interviewed on site, and I put so much pressure to say something prolific. I was okay. Anytime I'm watching interviews online, like Christopher Nolan or something, or Tarantino, or all these directors like Scorsese, they'll say something so prolific about what it's like to make film and how they have so much inspiration. And I'm like, I can sit down and think about this stuff, but the person asked me like, what was it like to make animation compared to film? And I just word vomited. I was like, oh, I was just like, animation is amazing because it's like film, but it's not. And I was like, I just completely blacked out and word vomited. But, I think with practice and doing more stuff like that, it's going to be a lot of fun. I got to experience the full range of emotion with the film festival. And screening it was amazing. There's nothing like the feeling of actually being in an audience of people watching your film and hearing the live reaction to it. So like, they laughed when I wanted them to laugh. They had like everything. So I loved that, and getting the feedback. It was really fun. Yeah.
No, that's so cool. And, film festivals for me is something new as well. So I know a little bit of what you were experiencing, although I wasn't in the director seat. So it's so cool that, like, for you, that was a badge of affirmation of like, I can do this, and you will continue to do this. So that's so incredible. And I'm honestly really proud of you, because I saw the work, I saw what you were doing. And so I'm excited to see whatever it is that you do next. But yeah, so now that we're completely graduated in this weird, scary world, what is like some advice that you could give someone who's in film school, who's not gonna go to, or animation school, who's not gonna go to animation school, or on the fence? Like, you talked about the pencil mileage. Now, like, how important do you think just that one, idea or thing is for someone who's interested in animation, or is there something else that they could be practicing?
The thing I would say about that is definitely, as I mentioned, I would not want anyone to look at this beast that is animation or the film industry and think that there is one clear cut path to it. So I would hate to tell someone like, oh my God, you need to go to film school or else you're not going to make it. Or you don't need to go to film school at all. You could just do it by yourself or else you're going to make it, etc. So I think that everyone does have their own path. But I think for me, it just worked out nicely because as a person who's gone through it, I serve as like an advocate of someone who like I believe in the power of film school. I believe in the power of like going and getting your master's and stuff. And it has like we're living testaments of the fact that it has worked for us. So I would definitely give the advice of like obviously be perspicacious, be aware of all your surroundings and be aware of what's going on in the industry regardless of what level you are in or if you want to take the educational route or if you want to take the personal route. But there's something about the resources that are available to you in film school that I don't think you can synthesize in any other way. You're forced to be in the same space with people that are all doing the same thing. They're all there taking it seriously. They're all there being very open. And I was asked when I was at Disney TVA, they were asking us like, so how does it feel being at a studio now? Like, how does it feel working with everyone here? And like, they were asking us almost like, does it feel jarring? Does it feel out of worldly? And I just told them, I was like, honestly, I feel like it feels like a natural progression because USC, SCAD, and all of my experience have prepared me to be right here. You know, I'm like, I don't even feel kind of like this weird sensation of like, oh my God, like I'm not going to say I don't feel imposter syndrome, but I didn't feel out of place because I was like, oh no, I'm in school at SCAD. I'm doing my little doodles. I'm learning my, I'm learning my little tools. Then I'm at USC and I learn how to take my hammer and build a little house. It's a small little house, etc. But then I get to go to a studio and I get to be like, using the construction analogy, I get to build like a skyscraper. So it feels like a natural progression, a natural step. And I just loved everything that I got out of it, honestly, especially at the places of my life, that I took it, like the pandemic, I got to go to school, got to make that. And my mom has done a master's degree. A lot of people in my life have done it. So I've seen the benefits of it. And it seems like, especially when you're young, it's one of those things where you just want to take advantage of the time because, but hopefully I answered your question properly. But
You really did.
Yeah.
And, I love that, you said that we're advocates of education, but it also, spoke on it's not the be all end all. Like there's two, very extremes. I'm not going to go to film school. I'm just going to do it on my own and I'm going to find my way. Quentin Tarantino did that. It is possible. And then there's the other opposite end is like, I'm going to go to film school. I need that, and George Lucas did that, and so there's so many ways to do it. There isn't one way. And I'm glad that you mentioned that. And I want to also champion that. We've been saying that. I want to also champion that as well. That, whatever your path is, as long as you understand your path and what it is that you're interested in, I think that you're the beholder of your future. So just, understand that there isn't one way. So I love that you championed that.
And I think regardless of what path you take, it's important to always be curious about it. Like everyone that's in this field is passionate and they're curious. They're constantly students of life, as corny as it sounds, but it's like you're constantly students of filmmaking. You're constantly students of what people are doing out there that's innovative. You're constantly students, and you have to be curious in an industry like us because you want to always stay on top of what everyone's doing. You want to always be on top of the best ideas and the best collaborations and stuff. So as long as you're curious and you're passionate, I think it's going to find you. And I just personally like the route that I took because, I'm happy with the results and I'm happy with the people I've met along the way. But yeah.
Nice. Well, that about wraps it up. And again, thank you so much, Adriel, for taking the time. And it was really fun getting to know you a little bit more and just hear about your film school, animation school experience.
Likewise. Thank you for having me. I think that, like I said at the beginning, this is such a great cause. This is such a great thing that we're going to be able to provide for people and giving them kind of the insights and the insight or the behind the curtain look at what it's like to be in film school. And I think you're a great person to hold the torch for everyone. So I'm more than honored to be here with you and help share the story.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah. All right.
And just like that, we have made it to the other side. What an amazing, amazing podcast episode. There was so much to grab there, and I hope that you got just as much mileage as I did when I was sitting there talking to Adriel. He had so much to share, and there is just so much motivation that you can take, whether you are in film school or not in film school, whether you are for film school or whether you're not for film school. So just know that there are so many ways, so many paths to get to the film industry, and really just to do what it is that you are interested in. Like Adriel said, just be curious, figure out what it is that you like, and then find a way to get there. Build your path to success because you never know where that next decision is going to lead you. And if you want to find out more about Adriel, see what he is up to on a daily basis, follow him on his Instagram. He's got 2 accounts, technically 3. He has his personal, and then he has his like business / artwork that he does, and he posts quite frequently. It is the month of October when I'm recording this, and he is in the process of doing like a monthly challenge where every single day on his Instagram he is uploading a image, something that he has hand drawn, and it's really awesome. And again, you get a chance to just see what an animator who's working at Disney right now is up to on a daily basis. And then also that third Instagram that I talked about is his film Kona, so you can follow all 3 of those Instagrams. All you got to do is check out the show notes and you can see all of the usernames where you can find Adriel and his work. Reach out to him. He's really awesome. I'm pretty sure he'll find the time to answer any questions that you have. As you know, I'm not an animation person and or filmmaker, but I do have one friend, well, probably more than just Adriel, but specifically Adriel. Reach out to him. He's got a lot of information and he has a heart of gold, and he is all about advocating education and just finding your path. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. I'm sorry that we missed last week, but again, I think this one was really awesome and so useful and so informative. So again, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm really, really excited for next week's episode. I don't know who we're talking to. I don't know where I'll be, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be a good one. Thanks again for taking the time to listen to this week's episode of the Film School Experience, and I'll see you all next week.